It's time to meet some movers and shakers, people making waves, the Wakulla wave makers.
Thank you for tuning in today for this edition of the Wakulla Wave Maker. My name is Brian English, and our goal is just to interview people in the county that make a difference, have made a difference, and hopefully can impart maybe some history and some wisdom. Today, I'm here with Frank Messersmith. Frank, if you would, take a moment just to tell us who you are, just to give us an idea so we can kind of, put you in that little box like our minds tend to do for people.
Well, I moved to Wakulla County in 1991, I guess was. I actually moved up here from Palm Beach County. I was a legislator in Palm Beach County for about a decade. A member of the House of Representatives. In fact, I was the Republican leader pro tem of the House of Representatives.
Wow.
When Governor Martinez was elected, he appointed me in 1990 to the Public Service Commission. So I resigned from the legislature and moved up here to serve on the PSC. And when I completed that term, then I went to the private sector, started representing clients before the legislature. But I only stayed in Tallahassee, renting a place there for about a year because I really wanted to get back down here to a more natural place and be close to the big water because I love the ocean. I spent a lot of time in the Atlantic Ocean down there in Palm Beach County. So I ended up buying property in 90 in Oyster Bay and built my house there in 91. And I've been living there ever since. And
oh, wow.
I continued to work in the government sector, representing business interests and private sector interests until 11 years ago. I retired 11 years ago and have been fully retired, mostly retired, I should say, from paid work, and then got just involved in our culture here in Wakulla County. In the mid-90s, I was the chairman of the Republican Executive Committee here. We had 10 Republicans here then, I think, in the county. And you couldn't even find people to serve on the Republican Executive Committee in those days. I was also very active. Oyster Bay is in a little four-community area: Spring Creek, Oyster Bay, Shell Point, and Live Oak Island. And I got involved with the commercial fishermen and the fishing guides and hunting guides and trying to coordinate them and finding places for people to live, to come down here and hunt and fish. It was early activity in the 90s to try to attract tourism for our natural resources. And that's when I started really getting involved in the county for doing those types of things. I had a hard time saying no. I think I need to retire again from all these positions I've accepted in there, but I enjoy them. This is my 26th year as a trustee for Tallahassee State College / now Tallahassee TCC as it used to be.
Yeah.
So I'm maybe the longest serving college trustee in the state at this point in time. I got involved with a number of organizations here, including the Wakulla Men's Club. Our effort is to raise funds for children's activities in Wakulla County. We actually created scholarships in the past for kids in college from the Wakulla Men's Club. I serve on the chamber, just took over as the new president of the chamber. Also in Wakulla, I'm a volunteer in what's called the Picking and Grinning Band. This is a band that has been around for almost 25 years. It's all volunteers and people come and go. I've been playing with them now for about 5 or 6 years. And they play normally twice a month at the Senior Center on Tuesdays and Friday morning to entertain the folks coming to the Senior Center. And the first and third Wednesdays, we do gospel. That's very well attended.
Oh, wow.
Over for that. Those things keep me jumping, and then just trying to keep up with my wife is...
She's also very busy.
Exactly. So that's about as good a snapshot as I can give you there.
One of the things, Frank, that I remember when I first met you, I just thought you were very kind. You were not presumptuous. You were very careful with your words. And people notice things like that. And so let's talk a little bit about leadership.
Leadership, you come by leadership the hard way. You do so by making mistakes, by getting burned, by dealing with a lot of people. And learning how things work best. For example, when I walked through those magnificent doors of the Florida House of Representatives for the first time, I thought, it's just a matter of time before I get them all convinced of the right way to do things. Fast forward a decade later, a whole different Frank Messersmith walked out of the chamber of the House of Representatives when I retired. I learned that nobody has all the right answers. I learned that compromise is not bad. I learned that we are better served with compromise situations. And if you ever want to get embarrassed, stand up on the floor of the House of Representatives to debate something against a chairman and his or her whole committee with only about an inch depth of knowledge, and you'll find out what it's like to be embarrassed and speaking before you know what you're talking about. Over those years, I learned to listen. I learned to appreciate people and their perspective. And I learned that there's always a second side to every situation. And that will help you a great deal in leadership.
I know that I've been led by other people that may not be in a superior position. They could be my friends, they could be anybody. But I think you have the ability to lead from where you're at. It's how you act, your character, your integrity. Tell us a little bit about the chamber and what's going on this year. I know you've just taken this on, but you've been very involved. And what kind of opportunities and challenges do you guys have?
The chamber has really stepped up the game very much, very much. In the last year, we did some strategic planning. We think we're better equipped now to help our members and our businesses grow and help provide what's needed in this community. We're divesting a lot of direction and control to members, growing their involvement, growing their interest, growing their experience so they can move along and help the chamber as it grows and goes further down the road. So we're off to a really good start.
Tell us a little bit about what you see in Wakulla County. You know, not necessarily just the growth, but the growth and the opportunities we've got.
I think about what we're going through now with this growth spurt. And I reflect back to the 70s in Palm Beach County in the 80s. That's the very same thing that happened in Palm Beach County. Guys, when I first moved to Palm Beach County, it was almost rural, just a couple miles west of West Palm Beach. And so change came about dramatically down there, much more so than here. But this is dramatic to the people who have lived here for generations and generations.
Right.
It is the nature of what's going on across this whole country, Florida and a handful of other states that have gone about keeping this a low-tax state.
Yes, sir.
Making it good for businesses, making it good for citizens and workers and that type of thing. Just continues to attract people and more businesses from other states where they're just going the opposite and they're just taxing them and regulating them and killing business interests. That's why we're so popular. So that's why it's spreading out the growth now in Florida from the bigger cities to the more areas that had, like this example here in Wakulla and Leon County. So we're getting the growth, which is uncomfortable, and people do not like change no matter what it is. So we're going through that angst, but we are getting now businesses that make us a much more self-sufficient community. So we don't have to drive 60-mile round trip to Tallahassee to buy something or get something or go to dinner or like. So familial and socially and professionally, this is going to be a great assistance to this community for its own standalone health and well-being. And the other thing is this community is so lucky in that so much of its property is already wrapped up in federal, state, county, local parks and communities that the development that we see down in the South Florida area should not be a major issue. So we're going to get through the growth spurge and things are going to settle down well. And the real problem here that we have to deal with is not the Wakulla County problem. It's the problem with the State Department of Transportation and the expansion of 319 through Crawfordville, which is not just for the benefit of Wakulla. It is a major escape route for hurricanes and storms and natural disasters.
Sure is.
That's the motivation for this road going through into the panhandle of Florida, is for everyone to be able to be safe. That's the motivation between legislation funding from the very get-go, how this all started. I think the angst that some people have with our local government, county government, is misdirected. It is really the problem they're dealing with is this 319 issue traffic, but it's just a growing pain we're going through right now.
Frank, looking at kind of the big picture, through all your successes and experiences, can you share about, in your opinion, what are some of the best habits individuals can have in order to grow, both personally and professional? What are some things that you've seen that seem to work very well?
Know what you're talking about on any subject that you decide to give advice or information or direction. Because
Heads up, Facebook.
yeah, really.
Sorry about that, but
Those Facebook warriors, their ignorance is they don't even know how much they're embarrassing themselves when they put stuff out there that those of us who know the truth are like, what on earth are they just... Anyway, knowing what you talk about, be knowledgeable. Listening, as I said before, no matter what side you are on an issue, there are two sides, at least, minimal, of an issue. So as you're dealing with problems, something you've been focusing on and trying to work out, and there's a wrinkle somewhere you can't figure out, if you sit back and think about, well, maybe I'm not thinking about everything. What created that wrinkle? And who's behind it? Then, and I learned this in big time in politics, who's behind that person with the voice? Somebody is fanning the flame. So if you take the time to logistically through that procedure, and then you'll have an idea or a concept in your mind of what is motivating the whole situation you may be facing, you'll find answers a lot quicker. And one thing I learned really too late in life is to have solid ground that you stand on. And I'm talking about through faith. Mm-hmm. And you cannot be bullied. You cannot be frightened. You cannot be stampeded when you're standing on solid ground. And being able to, in your mind, to reach out and think about the Lord, think about what you've been through and how you went through it and how you didn't know you were going to make it. And to realize that somebody else helped you will get you to the way you need to go.
Wow, that's power right there. I mean,
no doubt. I learned it the hard way.
What kind of advice, trying to get into the mind of a younger person with all your experience and everything you said, what do you think you could share to maybe give them some words of wisdom?
So I spent a lot of time on the education committee in the legislature and the education funding, and looking at the grades. Like fourth grade is the real turnover year mentally and physically for kids, where the educators think this is the year that's going to make or break a kid educationally, and they start growing them intellectually. They had ages set aside for different benchmarks and stuff like that. But I think all that's changed. Kids these days are so smart at such a young age, and not only smart, intuitively smart. Not all of them, of course, not all.
Sure.
But that percentage of them that when you talk to them, they talk to you like an adult conversation. They understand the emotion you're showing on your face, all that kind of thing. They're now exposed to the whole world through the internet. I am befuddled about how you control that. I do think that parents who can keep their children from having those electronic devices till they're a little bit older does a lot for their brain development, helps them. It also keeps them out of that social part of life that's just killing them. They're trying to keep up with people on the social web. So I think that is one place where parents could spend some time with them, and actually spending time with them and having dinner where not everybody is on their phone while you're having a family dinner.
Amen to that.
And those types of things to keep a focus on family to some degree in this electronic world is a challenge of today's families, I think.
Yeah, I know a lot of your school systems across the nation are even looking at more limiting of these electronic devices because they can be such a big distraction. I mean, it's a great way to learn and information's at your fingertips, but it's like anything that's potentially good, it can potentially be bad if misused. And I know that's a big challenge that all of our school systems have now.
It is.
I'm old school. It's hard for me to comprehend kind of where we are today as opposed to where we were. You know, I still think, and I know this is crazy, but my dad would get me from Pee Wee football practice or baseball or the Boy Scouts. And one of my biggest things that I look forward to is I didn't get one every time, but if he got paid or something, I'd get a Sprite. And I would sit in the back of the pickup truck, not on the top rail, but I'd start at the top rail, and then Daddy would snap his fingers and tell me to get down, and I'd get on the hump, the fender well. I just remember that so vividly, and that's what I look forward to. I didn't have to worry about just an overabundance of information and trying to decipher it that my mind was not prepared to do. So I really read you Lima Charlie there, and I don't have an answer, just praying about it and seeing what we can do, because I think we have to address that, I believe.
I also think with our dietary issues in this country, that this generation of kids now, they're going to, by a big percentage, going to outlive their children if something doesn't change with our food.
You're right. Could you share some mentors or some events that happened in your life that really stick out and kind of share with us on how that affected you?
I think at different phases, there were different people. For example, in grade school, I had a teacher. Her name was Mary Carter Culver. She was our 7th and 8th grade teacher. Our class was divided of one bunch of the kids who were really hip kids and were out doing things, exploring, smoking cigarettes and things like that, and another group of us who were in the choir and in the school plays and did all that. But she talked to us separately, the different classes. She knew what one side needed and what the other side needed. Our side needed a little motivation. The other needed a little dampering down. But she encouraged us. A kid that was in school with me, a guy named Charlie Moody, his mother was a school teacher. And he was one of my first best friends. She and her husband drilled in me every time I was at their home about getting on to school so you can go to college, go to college, go to college, go to college. And that is the reason I went to college. In college, I had a journalism professor who was just a former beat newspaper reporter from Chicago. And he was hardcore. And he dealt with everything at the human level, boy. And I was in his journalism classes and just hanging with him and him telling me when I was writing a story and interviewing people and him straightening me out and saying, you know, they told you this, but look at that person and what they've done or whatever, and what they say versus what they've done and blah, 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 blah. I ended up following his regimen. I ended up with a Reader's Digest Scholarship in International Journalism, sent me to Ireland to work in a newspaper. But he taught me about looking at people's character, and that helped me a lot. And then I was a deputy sheriff for 10 years in Palm Beach County. And there was a lot of people who taught me lessons on that one, and not like you like either, but the hard way.
Oh, boy.
So every progression in my life, there was someone. And in political office, you're very naive when you first get elected in politics. And there are those who step forward. And in the days before term limits in the legislature, for example, there were people who served 15, 18 years in the legislature. They would take you under their wing. Everybody, no matter what side you're on, there was a familial thing there. We all got along and taught you the steps and what not to do and so on and so forth. So I can't pick out just one, because every iteration of my life, there's been someone who took me under the wing, pointed a direction, and helped me.
I remember I was in the Boy Scouts, and I got a late birthday. So we were doing merit badge reviews and this thing like that. And Mr. Billy Singer, man, he's just a great guy. I was a little younger than the other ones, and we were the first ones to start the troop back. Bottom line, he said, Brian, you don't have to wait on these other boys to get these particular badges trying to work towards Eagle. And I said, okay, Mr. Billy. And he says, why don't you pick out a couple and just go do them? Now, this fine businessman, community leader, we were not wealthy at all. I grew up, we didn't have a lot of money. I didn't know that either. You know, one of the great things is ended up befriending his son who was in the troop, and you know, I stayed at their house. I thought I was in a mansion, but it was to me. And he was always so kind and always encouraging. And he always told me that, you know, you can do whatever you want to do. Now, it didn't all sink in when I was that young, but I'm 56 and hadn't forgot it. And so just many times, that's just one example of it helped me a lot. I mean, my dad was a good provider. He was in the military for 24 years. But that being said, this is a businessman and a computer. You know, I was able to be exposed to things that I never would have thought of. So, I mean, it's something I don't know. Maybe I think about those things too much, but I've got a lot of people I need to thank when that day comes.
That's very true. Very true. And a lot of our senior citizens have a lot of knowledge.
Yes, sir.
And if you're out somewhere where there's a mix of people, usually there's an older person just sitting there by themselves and trying to enjoy themselves, so like that. But you will be so surprised to find out what's been in their hip pocket. Sit and talk to someone like that is just the details of life that they've been through is so fascinating to me, to hear what they did in their life and what they got to say about everything is amazing.
Wow. Answer me this, if you could, Frank. If you could be king for a day, and I know that's a very broad, overreaching question, but if you could be king for a day, what would you try to affect or change or keep the same?
This country is in trouble. It's in trouble because the government created by our forefathers is completely out of hand.
Yes, sir.
It is overstacked with bureaucrats who are not elected, and over time have gained power and control over administration of our many programs and actions and agencies and so on and so forth. And there is no more, like I was telling you about in the legislature when I served, we all got along. We fought like cats and dogs philosophically on the floor. And we'd walk off and talk and go to a reception with each other, and we liked each other. That doesn't exist anymore. If I was the king for a day, I would make things happen so that there is not the animosity. There is acceptance of people think differently. And okay, that's good. People think differently. That's helpful when you sit together and talk and compromise things and make them work for what the needs are and diminish the powers and the authorities of the federal government over the states and the people in the states. Then we get back to a government as that works so well, that made us the greatest country in the world.
Oh, wow. That's pretty powerful coming from a man of your experience. Wow. Well, I really enjoyed this, and What I'd like to do is say thank you very much. Thank you for what you do for the county, and I got a feeling what you mean to a lot of people. So if you would, I'd like to give you the last word. Doesn't have to be long, short, long, whatever you want. Give you the last word. Go ahead, Frank.
I love this county, and I love the people I've gotten to know, made family. They're family to me around here. I spent my whole life in public service of some sort, and I enjoy doing what I do to assist. And if anything I can ever do to assist anybody, I hope they wouldn't hesitate to call on me.
Wow. Well said. Again, thank you very much, and God bless you, Frank, and your family, and God bless Wakulla. We'll see you next time.
It's time to meet some movers and shakers, people making waves, the Wakulla wave makers.